Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session today. We're excited to have this time with you for a few hours for our learning lab, how to build interactive reports with Quick Launch and Power BI. My name is Adam Krieger. I'm the president founder of Preferred Strategies, and just want to introduce this session and introduce Michelle Workmeister, who is going to be really walking through the session today, and as we get into hands-on with Power BI and walking through the steps there. So, I'm going to go through a couple slides just to set the foundation. So for those of you who are new to Power BI, again, Power BI is Microsoft's data visualization technology. If you follow anything like Gartner, they are now leading the Magic Quadrant, have done so for several years now in the Leaders Quadrant of their annual BI and analytics analysis that they do. There's what's called a Power BI desktop, which is really in a real life scenario where you'll do most of your report authoring. As a user that's building Power BI reports, you publish them to their web service, where then they can be used and shared amongst everybody in the company who has been granted rights and licensing to that. And you can also access that content from mobile devices as well. This Power BI service does allow you to do some editing. We are going to do that today for the hands-on. We're going to be modifying and adding, building reports in the web. It's not really what we'd recommend as a real life kind of production rollout, but I think it's fine for the sake of understanding what the tool can do. So this is just a little bit about kind of the flow of data in a typical format. There are some different ways to consume and develop Power BI related elements. So where Power BI as a technology itself is to build those visualizations, so more of a graphical representation of data, and that's what it does really well. Whether or not those are KPIs, or those are trend charts or waterfalls to analyze variances. You mouse over something, it shows up some tooltips. Everything's interactive and can be drillable. That's what Power BI does well. You'll notice at the bottom, you can also use Power BI to build list type reports that are different groupings of data, different kind of calculations or measures as your different columns per se. For certain formatted reports, I think of most like in the financial area, income statements and balance sheets, where you've got debits and credits with different sign changes. Maybe the way that if you're drilling down through your expenses, there's more layers that you drill through, or the hierarchy of that chart of accounts in that area versus the revenue side. And so there's just lots of kind of conditional suppression, conditional formatting. And so for those types of reports, we use what's called Power BI paginated reporting. If you're a Microsoft person in your background, you might have heard of SQL Server reporting services, but now it's paginated is kind of that built into the Power BI environment. There's also, we talk about Excel. Everybody knows Excel. The Excel is not a Power BI technology. However, you can build Excel pivot tables and Power BI reports from the same data set that drives the Power BI visualizations and the Power BI paginated reports. We're not going to showcase paginated reports today or Excel. If you're interested in those, we'd be happy to take that offline with you, after today's session. Today, we're going to focus around Power BI on the left. And just a couple other little kind of considerations. We see a lot of companies get started with Power BI, and what's great, what Microsoft has done so well is they've made it so easy to get your hands on it. Go out to the browser, download Power BI Desktop for free, and you can start doing a lot of these things on your own in the desktop. But what most companies do, because you have to understand how to model data and pull in data from different sources and massage it in a way to make it usable for the tool. So most people already have had some report, whether it's an ERP report or some other operational report. They're already exporting that to Excel, and Power BI can let you consume data from Excel spreadsheets. So that's mostly where people start, is I'm just going to throw Power BI on top of my spreadsheet. And in a short-term prototyping environment, that's great because it showcases for the organization what data visualization can do differently than the traditional, rows and number page reports and spreadsheets. The challenge there is that if you don't get in control of this process quick enough, you've got all of a sudden building data sets all on top of spreadsheets. Eventually that catches up to you from a governance and rolling out Power BI at an enterprise level. So the goal, what we try to share, and one of the things I want to point out is even in today's workshop, we're connecting to a data set that's already been prepared and procured. This is a quick launch data set. Today's session is going to be on top of JD Edwards. We support other ERPs, Viewpoint Vista, as well as NetSuite, and the general ledger is virtually the same. There might be a few different tables that are just unique to each of those ERPs, but when you look at all the measures, actual, budget, month to date, quarter to date, year to date, all of those kind of calculations are, David, you might want to mute yourself.
Justin had recommended we start using that term.
Okay. So, so in essence, what we're doing around the general ledger is, they've got all these calculations. We'll kind of point those out in a little bit. But you got to get the data from ERP. You got other data sources, maybe in the cloud. And so we just want to just lay this out there. There's different approaches, whether or not you want to connect right to data sources, or we have a lot of customers that create an optimized data store. Maybe their ERP is on premise, they want that in the cloud. That becomes their storage area, kind of in support of this BI initiative. And now the latest is kind of what we call a Delta Lake and Databricks. If you heard those terms, that's kind of the latest way. If you're going to get into more advanced analytics, that's kind of the route most companies are going. But the key is the data is going to land in this already governed, structured, organized, centralized data set. This happens to be a Power BI premium data set, which we're using today and what we deliver. And why is that important is, you could end up rolling out 50 data sets in your organization or 100 for each subject area. Or what we like to do is bring those in together because they relate on a lot of shared things. So for instance, in the JD Edwards example, you might have the general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, right? Inventory, sales, procurement. Well, in sales, inventory, procurement, manufacturing, maybe there's products that are being sold. So there's an item branch, or the product table that is shared amongst all of those different subject areas, right? So you can see what did I order in sales, what's still open in purchasing, what's my quantity on hand in inventory, what's on my work order in manufacturing. So if you think about all this data at the enterprise level needs to be related. So try and think that through. How do you create that single source of truth that allows you to slice and dice and analyze that data? And so you might hear us refer to terms like perspectives. In our case, because we basically build one model that supports GL and AP and AR all in one. Each of those subject areas, we can call that a perspective within the Power BI data set. You might hear us talk about dimensions. So things like in the financials, like we're covering today, like a business unit or an account, right? Those would be tables, kind of like the master data from the ERP, but those are things like company, business unit, object, and category codes would be different columns within some of those tables. And then you'll hear us talk about measures and KPIs, and Michelle's going to kind of walk all through this, but these are things that you don't really want each individual in the organization to build these on their own. You kind of want to make sure that these have been validated and everybody's making decisions on already agreed upon logic for all of this, right? And I think that's the key to get to the success. We're not going to dive in too much now, but again, when you roll this out and you have that data set, then you can connect Excel to it, you connect Power BI, those paginated reports, it becomes, again, that source of truth for all the decision making in the company with these related tools that connect to it. And we can help you with this. So if you're intrigued or interested in understanding a little bit more about Quick Launch, we'd be happy to dive into that with you.